And that's right, we're going to be looking at quite a lot of heavy rain. So let's bring in Robbie Munroe. He is a forecaster, again, with the National Weather Service, Greenville-Spartanburg. In Greer, they cover upstate South Carolina, a little bit of western North Carolina, even as far east here as the Charlotte area. So, Robbie, this is James in Charlotte. We got you on the phone here tonight. We appreciate you calling in. How are you this evening?
Doing great. Great to be here. Thank you very much.
So tell us, can you walk us through a little bit of what your forecast office is calling for right now with regards to your area and what we can expect to see when the post-depression Sally gets here?
Sure. So we're looking at rainfall and associated flash flooding and river flooding as our main concerns with the remnants of Sally as they move through the Carolinas. As we are looking at right now with our forecast, we're expecting pretty widespread amounts of 4 to 6 inches in and about the I-85 corridor, which includes Charlotte. Further to the south, where we might see actually a few strong to severe thunderstorms during the day into the evening tomorrow, further south from, say, Elberton up to Monroe, we could have localized higher amounts of 6 to 8 inches, possibly even a little bit more than that. And I will say that whole area I've described, and even up into much of the foothills and mountains of western North Carolina, mainly along and south of I-40 roughly, is in a flash flood watch for that very reason.
Can you tell us a little bit, for anyone who's not familiar, about what the criteria is for a flash flood watch and what people can then anticipate tomorrow as this begins playing out?
Sure. So the criteria for a flash flood watch is when we expect rainfall of a certain amount, usually on the order of 2 to 3 inches in any given hour. And really, we try to focus on the impact. So when we have a flash flood watch out, we think there's a pretty good chance of flash flooding in the area, which could include flooding of small streams, creeks, rivers, roadways. And really, flash flooding is one of the more deadly types of flooding. And in fact, with some of the localized amounts of 6 to 8 locally higher amounts of rainfall, life-threatening flash flooding is possible for some of these areas.
Robbie, Scotty here in the foothills. One thing also you guys have been highlighting, live here in western North Carolina in the foothills and the mountains, is the threat for landslides. So could you talk a little bit about that as well?
Absolutely. So as you guys are probably familiar with, it's been a really wet year already. And so on top of relatively high water tables, anytime we get rainfall amounts approaching 5 inches when we've seen a very wet time frame, isolated landslides become that much more likely. And we've actually been in touch with some of the landslide professionals over in North Carolina to kind of collaborate some of this background.
Robbie, it's James again. I'm wondering, for folks who are listening who live in this area, are there things they should do to prepare? Are there things they should do to react if they find themselves in a flooding situation?
Sure. So it really depends on your situation. One of the best protective actions you can take with most weather hazards is just to avoid the hazard altogether. So if you live in a relatively high elevation place that you know is not prone to flooding, and can afford to ride out the storm, it's best to just stay put for these things. It's also highly recommended to follow any kind of instruction from local officials, emergency managers, who can take this more detailed weather information, apply it to their local knowledge to the area. Yeah, that's some of the best advice we provide.
Robbie, what does it look like, if you can give us a little peek behind the curtain at the National Weather Service office, what goes on during an event like this? How are you guys tracking it?
Sure. So we use a lot of the same tools and strategies we do for weather day to day, which includes 24/7 forecasters on duty, 2 or more. We collaborate with neighboring offices, neighboring centers, to really try to reveal the best of the science and how we can best communicate that to the public and our partners. I would say the one thing that does change during these higher impact events is usually more of us get involved. So you'll see more people on staff, more collaboration, and really just kind of leaning on each other to provide the best forecast possible.
Robbie, I have one question about the landslide concern. How great do you think that risk is, and who would you say would be someone who needs to be concerned about that?
Sure. So the greatest risk would be the intersection of the greatest rainfall over terrain, which looks like right now would be the southern mountains of North Carolina, especially into the South Carolina mountains, where we could see on the order of 4 to locally 6 inches. In terms of people who should be most concerned, would probably be the people. Most people are probably aware if they're on a steeper slope or nearby areas that might be known for landslide concerns. And in some cases, people who might be a little bit more further removed from major roadways, maybe they have access concerns. Even if it doesn't affect their household themselves, maybe a road has been blown out before, or maybe that's a concern of theirs. So it's maybe something else to just be wary of.
Robbie, this is Evan in Asheville, North Carolina. As currently Tropical Storm Sally nears the area, it's expected to weaken to a post-tropical depression. Are there any wind impacts that we're expecting across your forecast area?
So typically the winds we're expecting, mainly only gusts to 20 to locally 30 miles per hour. That wouldn't really produce much in the way of impacts. But since we're expecting so much rain to loosen area soils, we would probably expect to see a few downed trees and power lines. But by far, flooding is the main concern with this system.
Thank you.
One last question for me, Robbie. A lot of weather followers tonight watching on the Facebook Live, and we'll be listening to the podcast. If any of those folks encounter flooding and they want to report it to you all at the Weather Service, how can they do that? What's the best way?
Sure. So probably one of the best ways that we're pushing is our social media. We have both Twitter and Facebook accounts, and check those regularly. So feel free to chat us up there. We also have a public line that you can look up online to give us a call during regular business hours as well. And of course, any kind of reports of damaging or severe weather is super helpful for us, providing better services to you all, to the public and all. So, yeah.
Robbie, Frank Strait again here. I got one more question for you, and this one about the severe storm and tornado potential. Looks as though that's mainly going to be off to the south and east of your area. Is it going to affect any of the GSP area, like potentially the far southeastern part over towards Charlotte, or is it going to stay off to your south and east?
Yeah, so that's a challenging question. A lot of it's going to end up being related to exactly where the low pressure system associated with the remnants of Sally end up. Right now, it looks like most models take that more into the Midlands of South Carolina, which protects us from kind of that front right quadrant, so to speak, of the system, which is most favorable for severe thunderstorms and especially tornadoes. But any jog to the north could produce more concern for our area. But like you mentioned, there already is at least some concern for our far southern tier. I will note that some of the convective allowing models do show some worrisome looking cells moving into our area. So it's certainly something we're aware of, and we are staffing up for accordingly.
Very good.
Hi, Robbie. This is Zach from Asheville. I was just curious, are there any concerns about river flooding for the particular region around Western North Carolina and the Piedmont region?
Sure. So the two rivers of greatest concern. So I guess the short answer is yes, we are concerned. Many rivers are expected to make it at least into action stage, or where you get water flowing just above bankful, which can have some low end impacts. The couple of rivers we're particularly concerned for are the Upper French Broad over in Transylvania and Henderson County, which is forecasted currently to go into minor flood stage, as well as the Saluda River down in Anderson, Greenville, and Pickens County, which is currently forecast to go into moderate flood stage. And as you guys are probably familiar with, oftentimes the river flooding can be a day or two later after we see the heaviest rainfall. So even though maybe skies are clearing and that kind of thing, that's when we could possibly see some of the greatest river type impacts.
Robbie, that is excellent advice, especially when it comes to the fact that we'll be holding on to this rain and letting it run off for a few days. We appreciate your time this evening dialing into the Carolina Weather Group. Please thank everyone in your office for all the work that they do, and we'll see you guys on the other side of this rain event.
All right. Thank you very much, and thanks for covering the storm.
Thanks, Robbie.